Good afternoon. Hopefully I don't put you to sleep after lunch. I am Stacey Wilson, and I'm a forensic scientist and also the quality assurance officer for the Western Maryland Regional Crime Lab, which is housed in Hagerstown, Maryland. And I'm just going to kind of go through some of the obstacles that I went through with the implementation of Qualtrax, and just a timeline of what occurred during getting Qualtrax up and running. My topics to be covered, I'm going to start with just a brief overview of who Western Maryland Regional Crime Lab is, and go through our Qualtrax timeline. What did we do before Qualtrax? And then any implementations or add-ons I've had since we've had the program, my obstacles, benefits of Qualtrax, and then my how we've used it thus far during audits, and then future plans. We're a very small lab. We're staffed with 3 full-time people. We have a forensic technician who's also our safety officer. We have a supervisor, forensic tech, and he pretty much does everything in the laboratory too. Then myself, who's my role is kind of split 50-50 between doing actual casework and quality assurance task. We are certified or accredited in controlled substances, and that's the identification or analysis of drugs, basically. We have a good variety of drugs in our area. We're at a tri-state area, so we're easy access to New York, West Virginia, Baltimore, DC. So we do get a lot of drug activity in at our agency. Last year was a pretty low for us for our drug cases. We've had a lot of officers leave. They cut out overtime. So our drug backlog was down compared to previous years. We also do crime scene investigations. So I'm on call 24/7 since there's only 3 of us. So I worked 30 hours the other week. We got called back to back for 2 shootings. And we do latent print processing, serology, serial number restoration, test fires, and then vehicle searches. The only discipline here listed that we're not accredited in is the serial number restorations. And that's just because we don't get enough caseload. They want a specific amount of caseload to accredit you in that section. We do have a part-time employee, our secretary, but she rarely uses Qualtrax. Prior to Qualtrax, everything was manual. I created documents in Word, and then as we decided to revise or change a procedure, we would all use track changes, and it would become a big blurry mess with red and black and purple and comments in the margin and this and that. So sometimes our documents could get a little overwhelming during our editing process. And then I had to remember to get rid of that old copy. We're in a very old building. Our laboratory is actually separated into 2 separate rooms, and then we have our crime scene truck. And with our accreditation with ISO 17025, you have to have your sampling plans available. So yes, I do have a copy of our procedure in the crime scene truck. So anytime that I revised a document, I needed to remember to go pull that hard copy, throw it away, make sure nobody used it again. And then the electronic copy, the Word document, I would have to go in and actually add a watermark stating it was obsolete. And then I had a separate folder that listed all the obsolete documents. And then I had to update the master document list. So a lot of things for one person to remember on top of getting caught out the crime scenes and the chief yelling at you for whatever he needed. So this is just a timeline of my experience with Qualtrax. I attended the AFQAM, which is the Association of Forensic Quality Assurance Managers meeting in New Orleans. And that was in September 2010, and I met Scott there. And I came back, they did a presentation, about a half an hour to an hour presentation. And when I got back to the lab, we always go over any meetings that we attend, where to present, whatever we learned, or topics that we attended. And I was really excited about this because I'm the one doing most of the document procedures and document control and getting ready for ISO 17025 accreditation. So we asked Scott to come in and do a demo. I did a web-based phone demo with another company, Power DMS. And when I mentioned ASCOD Lab, which is our accrediting body, the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors Laboratory Accreditation Board, he was like, who? So that kind of worried me that he would not know what kind of standards we needed to meet for accreditation. I was going to do another demo with Intertrax group, which is Paradigm 3. However, we needed to make a decision to get our grant in. So Scott gave such an awesome presentation. He won us over that day, and we put in for the grant funds, and we received the grant money in October 2011. So anyone working in the government institution knows it takes forever to get a purchase order to actually purchase something once you get the grant money. And we were able to purchase it finally in December 2011, and then we had it installed in January 2012. Deanna and Patrick came to do our on-site training in February 2012, and it was a great 2-day on-site training. I wish I could have videotaped them so I could remember every little detail after they left. And then I didn't actually have time to start playing with Qualtrax or working with Qualtrax until May of 2012. We had somebody go out on maternity leave. So staff of 3, now we're down to 2 doing everything. So by June 2012, I imported my first document. In July of 2012, I was able to get the bulk of our documents in. This kind of became my project, my child, and I'm the sole operator for the most part when it comes to editing and checking out documents, checking in documents, and adding all the revision comments. So when we first purchased the Qualtrax system, they had already had some of the standards in the system. So I received the spreadsheet, the Excel spreadsheet listing all the standards, went through and made sure that I agreed with the wording that they were using, and then they implemented those into our program. So some of the things that I needed to work on prior to Deanna and Patrick showing up for the on-site training was a template design, creating my browse tree, and then and just having a document 1 or 2 for importing so they actually had something to work with during our training. So I contacted someone I had met here at the users group meeting. Hey, what's your document tree look like? Can you send that to me? And Brenda Keller sent me hers, and I kind of followed a similar outline. I just wasn't sure, how I wanted this to look. So there's an example of our document tree. So in May 2012, when I started to actually get a chance to get my hands or feet wet again, I did a test document. Is everything working like it should? And everything worked great. Then it was about 3 to 4 weeks later before I could actually use the program again, and I ran into issues. So I started contacting support. And we found out that somehow my automatic file transfer had gotten deleted off my computer. I was getting all these crazy errors. Jennifer was like, I've never seen this before. I don't know what to tell you. And I'd get this funky text for my error. And so it took us about a week between go-to meetings and her talking to other personnel in Qualtrax. Once we realized, your automatic file transfer somehow got deleted. I did get a new processor, so we're not sure if all the programs did not get transferred to the new processor. So that was kind of like, I was really upset. I was ready to go, start importing documents, and then I run into this little obstacle. So I finally got our first document imported in June 2012, and I started with the Code of Conduct. This is a requirement. It's something that we have to review annually and also do training on ethics. And then I spent July importing the rest of the documents. I ended up having an intern come in and help me copy and paste all of our old Word documents into the macro template. I just didn't have time to do it. And she spent about 2 days importing our 100 and some documents. Some would copy really well, some would copy the old footer from the other one, and I was like ready to pull my hair out, and I was like, I don't have time to deal with this. So I had an intern come in to help me. I decided not to use the mass import tool. A lot of our folders only contain 1 or 2 documents, and so for me, I felt more in control if I could do each one separately. I've only had a couple of add-ons since we went live. We did the document download custom script, which I need to get the newest version, and that was added in March of 2012. And it's really a nice feature, especially for discovery for us. The state's attorney may request, or defense attorney may request, a copy of our actual SOP. So I can go in and just select those specific SOPs, create a zip file, either email that to them or put it on a CD. Also, it was really nice for our auditor. You know, we could easily find all of our documents and zip file them and send them off to the auditor. Maryland was lucky that in January of 2012, a new legislation was passed that we had to be licensed by the Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So what did that mean? More standards to follow. So I went through the law, which was very convoluted to read and figure out. They repeated a lot of stuff in different sections. They just didn't make it very easy to follow. And so I had these, I went through and created a spreadsheet and used the template from the spreadsheet that was sent to me previously to review the ISO standards, and entered everything I thought was important to link to my documents. And then I forwarded that to support, and Qualtrax had it uploaded within an hour. Then it took me about 8 hours to link them all to my documents then. This January was my first training that I actually set up, and it revolved around that code of conduct procedure that we need to read annually. And basically, I went through the procedure, created about 15 questions, just rewording some of the statements in the actual procedure to show that, yes, this person did actually read it. And I have it set up that they get 3 questions randomly. So each year, I don't have to go back in and rewrite questions. It'll randomly choose another set of 3 questions. So my obstacles. I'm very OCD, unfortunately, but that kind of helps in the forensic world because you need to be detail-oriented. When I felt pressured to create that template design, which the new version will take away all that anxiety, and working with macros, I was like, this is how it's going to look forever. You know, it's got to be just perfect. So thank you, Deanna, for being very patient with me as I constantly, it's like, I don't know if I like that idea, and changing my mind. And then, again, copying and pasting the documents from the old Word document into the template was time-consuming and frustrating at points, but luckily I had an intern that was able to help me with that. And then applying the standards to the documents. That took some time and effort because not all the standards are going to comply to each document, so I physically just made a spreadsheet of my documents and went through, or actually printed out the spreadsheet of the standards and then wrote beside it, which document does this belong to, so then I could easily go through and link them. But again, that upfront time to actually getting everything into Qualtrax, there is a lot of upfront time, but once it's in there, and it's done, unless something changes. And then my next challenge was, our document control procedure. How can I write this document so if I leave, someone else knows how to operate Qualtrax? And I ran into some issues that when I got my new processor, I don't know if they uploaded the newest Internet Explorer. Things just did not look how they looked in training, and I was like, what's going on? And you're kind of just having those doubts of, am I going to be able to use this program? Page numbering with the macros, I had some issues with the page numbering. When I would upload it into Qualtrax, it wasn't updating the page numbering. It would say 1 of 3 and then 1 of 3, 1 of 3. So support helped me get through that ordeal where I had to go through and update the actual page numbering before I imported it into Qualtrax. So this is what our header, what I finally designed. And so the top part is what it looks like in the actual Word document macro, which means nothing at that point until you import it, and then it'll fill in the actual title of the document. And then the footer. We're required by ISO 17025 to have specific things in our documents, such as who issued the document, when was it issued, page numbering, revision numbers. So here was an example of where Internet Explorer had changed, and when I would check out or check in a document, I get the screen, and of course it looks different in Firefox. So it depends on, my one coworker likes Firefox over Internet Explorer, and then, so I put a lot of these comments or what you would see if you were doing your, in my document control procedure. So now I need to go back and revise that and maybe take all that goofy stuff out, because if someone else is using Firefox, they're not going to see that exact same screen. What do you want to do with this PDF? So now I have more revisions to do. Yay. Another big obstacle, and I'm still not sure how the best practices is for tracking edits. Right now, what I currently do is I have a separate Word document. As I'm revising a document, I'll make a notes, bullets, change this word to that word, or deleted section 5.5, or added section 6.6. So then I can just copy and paste that right into the comment section in Qualtrax, because there's no way to have them both open right now at the same time. And that was something I wanted to discuss with future revisions of Qualtrax, that if we would be able to, as you're revising, go ahead and start filling in that comment field. I think to me that would save a lot of time, because right now I'm still doing 2 steps. I've decided right now not to use track changes, because when you even just with 3 of us making comments and stuff, then I still have to pull all that information out. What did we actually really change to put into that revision history? Reviewing a document was an obstacle at first, because we didn't think about opening a whole new browser where we could have the document in one browser and then actually have the reviewer's revision comments in another browser. We're lucky that we all have 2 computer screens, so we can visually have both open at the same time. Originally, I ended up, I think Ken helped me on that one, on how to open a new browser. But so that's helped with reviewing documents. How to avoid my obstacles. Number 1, make sure your on-site training is scheduled when you're going to go live with this and not a few months later, because you will forget everything they told you. It's a cram-packed 2 days of information, and you think you took really good notes, and then you realize you're looking at your notes going, what? I don't remember how to do this. Just becoming familiar with the macros in Word, and contact current people that are using it, seeing how they've dealt with certain things and how they have been able to overcome their obstacles of uploading, importing documents, or creating their browse tree, or determining a header and a footer and that kind of thing. So the benefits of Qualtrax. There's no more hard copies for me to manage except for the 1 copy that I keep in the crime scene truck. Automatic update of the master document list. That's one thing I don't have to remember to do anymore. Email reminders. Yes, we're just a lab of 3, but I still would be like forgetting, hey, you need to review this. Now Qualtrax can bug them be like, you haven't done this yet, you need to do this. So I don't feel like I'm being the little, witch coming around. I think about the movie The Proposal, where I don't know if you've seen that, and they're typing in the witches on a broom when Sandra Bullock comes into the office, and yeah. So I don't have to be that little witch for that part anymore. And it's easy to track our documents now to a particular standard. So in reporting, if an auditor comes in and wants to know which document meets the standard, we can run a quick report, and I can show them exactly where. Some of the comments from my coworkers, just the ease of finding our SOPs now. I mean, they're all in one location. You're not looking for this hard copy, which was in this lab, or in that lab, or is upstairs in the office. It's all right there. And the nice thing now, we have an iPad, so if it's a procedure that you're not in the same room as the computer, you can have the iPad right beside you as you're actually making that chemical or doing that procedure that you don't do very often. So it's nice to have that visual aid right there. My coworker, the forensic tech, just said that it was easy to use and it helps to avoid confrontations as the software is sending the email reminders. My boss stated that his favorite feature is the search feature, which I kind of forgot about for a while. And one day we were discussing one of the requirements from ASCOD Lab, the accrediting body, about examination dates. And I couldn't remember if each thing needed the actual examination date, like our notes, or if it could just be the ending examination date. And I'm like, where is that? What procedure is that in? It just was not coming to me. And so then I just started typing in different words into search, and then it popped up, and I had the standard, and I could go back to the original standard and be like, okay, this is what it is. Other things, being in one convenient location, your most current document is always available, so this helps to keep everything organized. It tracks document history and reviewer comments, so we have that nice audit trail. It's very easy for an assessor to assess our documents. So we performed our first audit, our internal audit, in 2002, in the fall of 2002. So it was right after I implemented or imported the bulk of our documents. Our support service administrator, who is a retired captain that came back, he's actually over my boss in the chain of command, and he does audits for police departments. So we thought, well, he might be helpful. There's only 3 of us, and to do a full internal audit of our entire lab takes us about 2 weeks. So that's 2 weeks of not getting any casework done or trying to juggle casework while we're doing our audit. So we asked him the previous year if he would help us with our audit. So this was his first time ever being exposed to Qualtrax. Basically, we got it set up on his computer. I went in and just briefly showed him, matter of minutes. He was using the word search before I even remember that it's there half the time. So he easily was able to find the documents he needed to ensure that we were in compliant with the certain standards that he was asked to audit. He rarely had a question on where to find things in Qualtrax. He was, just one thing that in ISO 1705, I think they call it the customer. Well, my boss didn't like that word customer, and we call it the client. So he was searching customer, and I'm like, oh, that's the wrong word. You need to use client. And then he could find exactly what he needed. We had an ASCOD Lab staff auditor come in February. We asked him for his input, but he did not want to endorse the product. So he would not give us any feedback on that. But he did state that he had viewed the website prior to coming. And we sat him down in front of a computer. Here's all of our documents, and hardly asked any questions on where to locate things. So it went very smoothly. So my future plans this week is to take in as much information as I can to learn how to do workflows, add additional trainings, and utilize reporting the things that I need to, or I would like to add into our Qualtrax system is some of our forms and worksheets that we use on a daily basis, and other documents pertaining to our organization. So the trainings, bloodborne pathogens, safety, just your typical laboratory and services that we have to do every year. Some of the workflows I would like to create is management review. We sometimes forget things to check that's required are listed in ISO 17025, so it would be nice to have a workflow that my supervisor could just go through. Okay, I check this section, I check this section, and it would be awesome if we could create a report from that management review to help that process. And the typical ones, you know, corrective actions, a literature review, and other workflows that have already been designed. Okay, short, sweet, and simple. Any questions?